Ladies and gentlemen, it is our great honor today to have Rob Smedley, the former Formula One race engineer and also former Formula One director of data services. Am I correct?
Almost. Data systems.
Oh dear. Okay, that's my bad. Sorry, mate. To my million of followers.
10 million.
Okay.
10 million followers.
Yeah, 10 million followers. Great to have you here, Rob. And we are going to talk about the AWS today and also the data systems and also the game day and F1 league. I know you have been to several F1 league, involved in several F1 league. Can you tell us about what is the most interesting thing that is with AWS game day Formula One league?
The most interesting thing, Dan, is that it's a microcosm for Formula One, right? So Formula One is a massively technologically driven sport. You know, it's the most data-rich sport on the planet. And you got guys like me, you got engineers and data scientists and technologists who are trying to, you know, use technology and use data to drive an advantage, and they build that technology and they build systems and they build tools to try to be able to extract an advantage, a competitive advantage, which puts them, you know, ahead of other Formula One teams. I think the AWS F1 Game Day League is kind of like a tiny microcosm of that, you know. So we've set challenges, and it's for the teams to be able to understand challenges and then use technology to be able to try and build out solutions. So it's really nice. It's nice to see that, you know, all the teams working together.
Lovely. And you mentioned the similarities between the war room thing back in your old days in the pit wall, and you talk about also the game day F1 league. So can you draw some similarities? Name some examples so that the engineers, the IT experts that are taking part in the game day would be able to know.
Well, I think the similarities, especially with this year's quests that we're going to see, you know, we've already seen in the initial summits, and then we're going to see going forward as well in the next rounds of the competition. It's very structured to be like a pit wall. So you call it the war room, and it's really structured. So you're taking in different data sources. You know, you're taking in video data source. There's an audio data source. You're taking in the timing. And then you're trying to fuse them all together. And when you fuse them all together, this is what gives you, I guess, what you would call, you know, the synergetic effect. It gives you a much more powerful effect. So we've given, as a game day quest, to these developers and programmers and DevOps, you know, we've given that exact type of quest and say, okay, build me a mini pit wall. You know, it hasn't got all of the bells and whistles and all of the complexity of a full pit wall that you might see with Red Bull or Ferrari. You know, in the year 2023, but certainly it's a base level of that, and it's a really cool quest.
So it looks like, I don't know, because I haven't been to one yet, so it looks like it's a quite immersive experience?
Totally immersive, totally immersive. It's kind of like, well, you got to go, right? You're going to go to the Hong Kong summit, yeah. And that's going to be super cool. So it's absolutely the same as it is in a Formula One team, in that you've got a challenge. Yeah, you've got a bunch of technology to be able to kind of overcome that challenge, and then you get teams of, you know, technologists and scientists and physicists and mathematicians all working together to kind of put a solution on the table.
Yeah, actually I lied. I'm not going to the Hong Kong one. I hope I'm going to the London one though.
Ah, okay.
Okay, speaking about your experience, you have vast experience in Formula One, and what are the three factors for teams of IT experts and engineers to excel or to win in F1 league?
Okay, so the first one is this, right? Mm-hmm. If you're gonna define a solution, you've got to first define the problem. So understand your problem first and foremost. Yeah. So if I go back to what I know, which is, you know, trying to make Formula One cars go fast, you know, it's very easy to say my car is 1 second slower, 2 seconds slower, but define the problem, understand the problem in detail. And once you've understood that problem in detail, then start to put solutions on the table. So then you you can then define the solution. And once you've defined the solution, or once you've understood what the solution should look like, start to put technology in place. And this is where building on AWS comes into play.
Oh, okay, so identify the problem, find solutions and apply technologies.
Correct.
Brilliant. So what are the main challenges that Formula One team encounters when they are adopting new procedures and technologies like AWS? And how the teams on site are going to accept or learn from the challenges that F1 team faces every day?
So, Formula One, like we were talking about earlier, Formula One is really, really technologically advanced, and it's always been at the forefront of the technology curve. It's always been leading that technology curve. So it's always been an early adopter of technology. So technologies like, AWS technologies, cloud, compute power, or performance compute, machine learning, artificial intelligence. All of those things Formula One has tried to be early adopters of, and you see with AWS integrating itself into the sport now, you can see these tech giants who are merging with the teams and the league itself to create effectively a better sport, exactly the same as exactly what AWS and Formula One are doing together. But obviously, because you're at the forefront of the technology curve, you're innovating, and you've got to remember that word innovation, because when you're innovating, it's very difficult to be able to plot a very clear path from the outset. So you've got to adopt what is a really clear tenet of AWS, which is called fail fast. So you've got to take small chunks and small bites, and then you've got to kind of develop the first part. You've got to do the first sprint, and you've got to find what works and what doesn't work. And in finding what doesn't work, that's a key part of innovating. Because when you find that you've failed, a certain direction or a certain solution has failed, that gives you much more information for what will be, the next iteration, the next phase of your solution architecting. So remember that when you're innovating, you're going to run into problems, you're going to run into mistakes, you're going to run into areas that are difficult to overcome, and it's using the technology and it's using the expertise to be able to pick a new direction and then continue to move forward.
I would like to draw another question on fail fast. For IT experts who are not in the environment of Formula One, they are adopting new methodologies and methods and technologies. They were used to certain kind of systems, and they are put in a very intense environment. So if I am a competitor, what are you going to tell me so that I could actually manage to survive in that environment?
Daniel, I don't think it's any different to either the Formula One environment or another environment, another technology environment, let's call it. I think when you're adopting new technology, it's always intense, and you always have to accept, we go back to that word innovation. You're innovating, and when you're innovating, there's no way that you can expect to get it right from the outset. So accept within the team and accept within your environment that it's going to be difficult. That would be my main bit of advice. Accept that you have a robust team that can fail, but can learn from those failures and then take 2 steps forward the next day.
All right. And now applying technologies, AWS technologies, how have the AWS technologies changed F1 team works on and off the track?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, because since AWS came into the sport in 2017, 2018, it has, we have deployed a lot of AWS technologies within the sport. So, both mainly, I would say, in the area of fan engagement, but also in the area of trying to improve, overall operations and operational efficiency of the sport as well. So if you take what we do with the F1 Insights, the way that we merge all of the data together, and we adopt, machine learning technology there. Adopting the SageMaker platform, which has been a really key step for Formula One to take, to use this machine learning, this artificial intelligence technology to try to predict and forecast what's going to happen in the race. That's been a massive step forward and a great step forward in informing the fans as to what's going on. And then if you take on the other side, the new car, we still call it the new car, the 2022 car, but it's there's a lot of new technology in that, and the way that we deployed a lot of compute power from AWS in the EC2 cloud services in order to be able to fail fast and iterate quickly and innovate that design quickly, so that we could get a set of rules out to the teams, and they could design their versions of the cars, if you like. And you can see, we've kind of iterated to these really, beautiful cars that actually are allowing closer racing.
Right. So, if my understanding is correct, can I just say AWS Formula One technology applies to the Formula One as an organization more rather than teams, because teams would have their own sponsors or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, with what we're talking about here, the F1 AWS partnership, I mean, certainly we apply that technology at a league level. So we apply it in the way of trying to engage fans, in trying to build a better sport. And, nowadays, whatever your industry, whatever your sector, if you want to build something and develop something new and innovate, you have to rely on technology. And this is where the partnership with AWS is so key.
In your opinion, what is the biggest single change with fan engagement applied with AWS technology then?
I think the biggest single change is the way that we kind of merge all the data together. Data in Formula One has always existed. You've got the car telemetry data, you've got the timing data, weather data, tyre data, circuit data, metadata, you've got all of that. But it always existed in disparate silos, and it was difficult to bring that together and to really inform the fan as to what was happening. I think with AWS coming into the sport and partnering with Formula One, what we've been able to do is we've been able to build and architect solutions that bring all of that data together, that merge all of that data together, that package it neatly, and then start to give insight to fans, to do some really clever analytics on 2-3 different disparate sources of data, and merge those together to give a key piece of information to the fan at the moment that they need it.
Are you aware of the one or single biggest changes in 2023 in terms of the on-screen graphics for Formula One broadcast from AWS?
Yeah, I mean the one that we have launched this year, which is probably the a really nice one that we like, is what we call track dominance. And that is trying to tell the story of how two drivers compare to each other all the way throughout the lap. So it's using data and car telemetry and timing data to try to really do a deep dive into that story. So rather than just, going back to, say, 5 years ago, where you would be able to say, okay, this is one lap time compared to another lap time between two drivers, so you've got a single data point, we now get down into this really cool level of detail where we're able to say, okay, how does that one single number, that lap time delta, how does that evolve through the lap? And is there a place where, is there one single corner or two corners where it all comes from? Or is it just a general trend that one driver is quicker than another? Or was one driver quicker than another in some corners and then slower than the other one in others? It's really cool to get behind that.
Can we just to jump a little bit into the future, so applying, AI technology and other AWS technology, can we just include more insights other than what we have already got? Like, how do you deploy different strategies at different points? Because out of the context, or just provide a little bit of context, when I hear Bernie Collins speaking on the Sky broadcast, it's just opening horizons to everybody, even the commentators in English, and they actually said that. So how could that sort of layer could be added during F1 broadcast, or can it not be?
It can. First of all, the answer, Dan, is it can, and it must be, because
but it's not doing it, right?
We're not doing it at the minute, but that is definitely part of the future. And again, with AWS, we're actually, are right at the point of innovating around that. We want to bring that to the fans. It's something that together with across the partnership, the Formula One AWS partnership, We want to be able to bring that second, third, fourth screen experience. So, of course, you've got your what we call the linear feed. So the linear feed is the TV, the images and the commentary that's overlaid on the top of that. But then in order to understand a sport which is, as complex as Formula One, you've then got to be using data and bringing data in to explain the strategy. People like me, I'm used to sitting on a pit wall and watching, 20 squiggly lines in front of me that are telling me exactly how this race is unfolding and how the strategies are unfolding and what the tyre strategies are and what the degradation is and what the pace is. All of those things, I think we've got to bring to the fans in a way that they can understand. And as you say, open up horizons, explain the complexities of Formula One and engage the fans much better.
Because where does this come from? Because it's from my own perspective. Because it has been really, really hard for me right from Hong Kong commentating and then try to understand different strategies of different teams. And once Bernie is in, I was trying to do my little bit. But once Bernie is in, and when she speaks, I let my partner speak. And then I actually listened. And she gave a lot of insight. So one of my out of the blue idea or out of the box idea is that just have AWS head of strategy, even a virtual character. But you guys know every strategy, almost with every data.
Yeah.
Just at the single point as a F1 regulator or F1 organizer, the league itself, that you could provide sort of impartial analysis to the audience.
Yep.
Because you can't depend on any teams to provide you anything because they are going to gain tactical or marginal advantages, right?
Of course.
So do you think this idea actually work?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's a great idea. It's and honestly, we're right at the start of being able to start to deploy versions of this. It's so important, I think, that we continue to engage the fans and to explain to the fans, the strategic and tactical complexities. So absolutely, this is something that we're going to do.
Can you break down the F1 car data into gigabytes and terabytes so that the audience would know a bit?
Sure, it's a great question. So the cars themselves, each car will generate something like 25 gigabytes of data per race. So that's just the race, and it's generating something like that. So that's from all of the data that's coming off the car, all of the telemetric data that comes off the car and then is transported back at very high frequency via RF to the pit wall, and then all of the car that is all of the data that is subsequently downloaded from the car. So if you then spin that up by 20 cars, that's an awful lot of data. That's something like 500 gigabytes per race, and that's for the single race.
And let's move on to the other part about Formula One. According to the official data from F1 Fantasy, Hong Kong actually ranks top 3 or top 5 in points per account scored last season. So do you have any specific data out of for Hong Kong or in general for APAC about fans in Asia?
Well, what we can say, Daniel, is it's a super fast-growing market, and we've got America, which is a very fast-growing market for Formula One, and then we've got Asia Pac as well. So it's no surprise that there would be such engagement in the F1 League. Absolutely not. I think it's up to us as an organisation. And again, we come back to using that technology to be able to basically engage our Asia Pac fans much more. We've got races, obviously, that some real flagship races that happen within Asia Pacific. Definitely the plan is that we would like to move more into that region. As Formula One globally expands and as it has been doing. But what I would say is that, every time I personally go to Asia or Formula One goes to Asia, I think we just get such a great reception. I think it's such a warm set of fans and such an enthusiastic set of fans, in all the different places around Asia Pac that we visit.
Speaking about some of the personal aspect. You have been working for teams and also working for Formula One as the league. So what is the greatest mentality change between two roles?
I think in the teams, you're totally focused on your team and winning, and you care about little else. You have to have that mindset that the only thing that you want to do is you want your car to be the best car on the grid and to have the best drivers on the grid, and you want to win. And you don't, you're very, very blinkered to everything that goes on the outside. I think when I stepped into the role within the league, within Formula One, the league, it gives you a much greater perspective, and it gives you a much greater perspective of the fan engagement landscape, the commercial landscape, Formula One as a whole, the health of the sport rather than the health of your particular team. So it's very nice. It's really nice to be able to juxtapose those two things. I don't think either one is better or worse than the other. I think they're just very, very different. And I think being in a privileged position where I've kind of had a very good insight into both of those areas, I think gives me a really good position to be able to kind of both help the health of the teams and also help the health of Formula One.
There are two types of engineers. One who have already got into Formula One. There are actually 7 Hong Kongers who are working as Formula One engineers right now across 3 teams. And there are engineers who try to get into Formula One, but maybe they are delaying their dreams or whatever. So, drawing from your own experience, what was the biggest struggle when you were working as a Formula One engineer? Can you share a little bit with us?
Yeah, I think it's the pace is so fast. The pace of development and the expectation, is really fast, and the expectations are really high. So therefore, the pressure is really high. So you have to be able to work under sustained pressure at a very, very high quality. You can never be in a position where you're kind of accepting a lower quality or accepting to work in a slower way. It's relentless. You've got to keep pushing, and you've got to keep on top of technology, and you've got to keep on top of your team and make sure that your team is delivering.
Can you put a timestamp on that particular point of your career? Can you share?
Yeah, look, as latterly in my career, things are, I would never say easier, but there's certainly, you withstand the pressure much better, and you're affected by, outside influences much more. You can remain much more focused on the job. But certainly at the start of my career, when I first started with Stewart Grand Prix, which is now the Red Bull team, and then afterwards I went to Jordan, which is now the Aston Martin team. I was very young, and I was probably accelerated, into management positions at a very young age. I doubt it would happen nowadays, to have, such a young guy with that amount of responsibility. But it's something that I've always relished. I love pressure, and I love high pressure environments, and I love having to deliver under pressure, and I love, engineering and technology and science and physics and maths. So when you kind of mash all that together, it's Formula One.
What did you learn from that low point that you mentioned, and how did you apply or identify solutions or apply your life skills on it to move on?
It's just part of growing up, right? You've just got to, when you're in a situation which is really tough to handle, and you're really, there's a lot of pressure, and it feels quite relentless. Eventually, you kind of get used to it. Eventually, it just becomes the norm. So now my wife kind of looks at me and she says, "I can't believe the amount of stress and pressure that you live with." Even now, in Formula One, the league, in dealing with AWS technologies, in the other businesses that I run. But it's kind of you become completely used to it. You become completely normalized to that level of pressure.
Out of all cars and drivers, which is your favorite car and driver?
So my favorite car that I've worked with is the 2004 Ferrari. That for me is still the most beautiful of Formula One. You know, the cars were very small, very light, 600 kilograms, super tiny cars, very, very powerful, you know, 1,000 brake horsepower engines like we have today, but wrapped up in a V10. Great sound, great noise, and we won everything, right? So I'm bound to love it. You know, we dominated the World Championship. And I think, therefore, if I was going to pick my favourite driver of all time, the best driver for lots of different reasons, it has to be Michael Schumacher. He's still an idol of mine. You know, I got to work with the guy. I got to work with the guy for many, many years. Great work colleagues and friends. Being able to work and learn from somebody with his work ethic and his brilliance behind the wheel, both behind the wheel and in motivating the team when he's outside of the cockpit, and how clever he was behind the wheel in terms of being able to assimilate so much data and being able to kind of just deliver excellence every single day that he got out of bed and come to work. That was a real motivation for me, and I learned a lot from him, and that's why he will always remain, you know, the best in my eyes.